And we've got 50 in the room, so we're going to go live. We are 2 minutes ahead of schedule. So some people are going to show up and go, wait, you got started without us? Sorry about that. But we've been chit-chatting here a little bit beforehand. Sometimes I've got time, sometimes I don't. But hey, it's a Sunday, and it's beautiful outside. So you step outside and realize how cold it is. But believe it or not, I actually mowed part of my backyard today, and it was the first time I've had the lawn tractor out this year. And there's something cool about a piece of machinery that you haven't touched in 6 months, and you walk over, flip a few switches, press a button, and it starts. So you got to love the Cub Cadet lawn tractor. But got to say hello to everybody who's here. Johnny Knoxville, of course, Scott Argyle, Locked On Law, Mindbend, Emmanuel Guerra, John Phillips, Brian Bloomer, who asked about auto delete. I'm not even sure what he's talking about there, but hey, you know something? I don't have to know what you're talking about. Just fire stuff away and we'll see what happens. Gene Montgomery loved the Diet Coke shirt Friday. Someone just sent that in, and I'm like, wait, we were just talking about this. Howdy, Thilo Egth. Eddie the Mouth, cold here too. Ellen King, hi, Steve. John Phillips, Steve, you covered something, the town next to me, the Purple Power Wheels Jeep. Was that somebody who got a drunk driving in a Purple Powers wheel? I think that's about right. Yo, Steve from Captain Sunshine. Scott Turner, hello. Jonathan Irwin gives the old salute. D Wood, hi Steve, nice to see you on the chat scan. Thank you. You know something? It was a little while. I just because I moved the studios and stuff, just hadn't gotten around to it. And but they're fun, and I'll do them as long as I've got a voice. And today I actually did bring some water. So I realized this is bottled water that probably just came out of a tap in New Jersey. And the bottle itself costs more than the water, but it'll work if I get a scratchy throat. So, sup, the Saltwater Press. Derek LaRue checking in. I appreciate the support, my friend. You know, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I demonetize these live streams until later. Once they post, I flip the switch, but they're not monetized until later because I just got something about commercials. Lego House, Steve, a $12 white folding chair. You need a better chair for your videos. Well, I'm sitting in a really nice work chair. This is a really nice chair, but the problem is I don't want to be rocking on camera, and I don't want to be moving on camera. I can do that during a live stream, but I can't do that on camera. So I've always done live streams by sitting in a non-moving analog chair. Georgiana Thornton, thank you very much. And Johnny Knoxville, here's some property tax money for the new Lehto lair. Hey, I was going to call it my Fortress of Solitude, but I guess we can call it my lair. And by the way, a couple of things I should mention. Somebody, I mentioned last week that the week before's live stream, I had a grand total of minus 10 subscribers. I did not gain any, but I lost 10. And I said, that's kind of strange because normally you gain some, you lose some. It's no big deal. But I thought, why would that one live stream do nothing but cost me 10 subscribers? And I had somebody send me a very, very detailed note explaining, and I think they thought I didn't know how it worked. But they said, you understand, Steve, that you'll win some, you lose some. And so you're not, I understand that. My point was, I've never seen a video that literally lost 10 and gained 0, because they show you the numbers that make the net. It was a net minus 10, but it was all minus 10. So that was unusual. Second of all, I got to tell you that I'm still working on this project, by the way. Okay. So I mentioned last week that if you want a copy of American Murder Houses from me, just send me an email with the word book in the subject line, and I'll invoice you via Square. I do not know the exact number yet, but I have already mailed out almost 400, and I've got more to go. And the post office, the postmaster at my post office has turned on me, understandably so. But I walked in the first day with 100, just tubs and tubs and tubs. And she's like, oh, this is cool. Second day I came in, she's kind of like, and the third day we started discussing how to minimize the disruption it was causing. So I'm going to start bringing them in batches of 50, or maybe go to another post office. I don't know. Michael Watrates, oh no, I'm late again. No, you are never late. If you are here, you're doing better than everybody who's not here, right? Daniel asks if the Canadian robot lady will join us. I don't think she can join us yet. She told me that a couple weeks down the road she would do what she could to join us. But her schedule is a little funky. Plus, she's in Canada and she's over at least one, maybe two time zones. So, Tom Rogers is a couple bucks for water. It's not from a garden hose in West Virginia. Hey, at least it's not bottled from a tap in Flint, right? Fred Canavan, hello from New York. I appreciate that, my friend. Thanks for checking in. MG Mustang 05, did you ever get those cards you mailed yourself a few years back? At least one of them I never did. I mailed myself a couple first-class letters where I addressed it to myself with my return address so that either way it would come back to me. And for the longest time, two didn't come back. And finally, one came back addressed to me, and the other one just disappeared into the ether. So I don't know. Thilo Agti says, today's video, there's a reason my phone can only be unlocked with a 6-digit PIN. Also, I have privileged client emails on there. Yeah, I did the video today about how the Ninth Circuit Court just said that they can grab your thumb and force you to unlock your phone if it's simply being locked by a biometric thing like that. And the oddity of it is that if you have a PIN number on it, they can't force you to tell them the PIN because that's testimonial. But your thumb apparently is not. And many people go, what's the distinction? And I understand the distinction on one level, but on the other level, it's kind of like, but they can grab your hand and force you to, that sounds wrong, but yeah. So Grimsbar says, can you explain a search incident to arrest? I'm confused how your phone holds evidence about window tint. Well, they're saying that it started with the window tint is why they contacted him. Once they determined he was on probation, they then looked up his probation rules. And his probation rules said specifically that if he comes into contact with law enforcement, he's got to let them take a look at his electronic devices. So that's an oddity that I was not really thinking about at the time. I mentioned it in the story, but obviously the phone does not hold any evidence about his window tint unless, of course, he's got like receipts in there or something for it. And then they started looking through it and they claimed they came across photographs of contraband. But then they went and searched his house. And it's like, wait a second. Somewhere along here, couldn't you get a warrant? Call me crazy. Bob Kerflugen, hello from Gaylord, Michigan. Thank you for checking, my friend. Gaylord's a cool place. It's kind of up here. I remember a little kid driving up north as Grayling and Gaylord and then the bridge. So unindoctrinated says, don't use biometrics, y'all. Yeah, use a PIN. Josh says prehensile thumbs are useful. Sort prehensile tails, right? Russell Warren says, what about the Fourth Amendment? The Fourth, the Fifth, name a bunch of them. Gordon 86, mic sound is popping. Yeah, you know something, and I've listened back to these live streams, and it's not popping right now. At least it's not popping as it feeds into the system. And somehow, whatever YouTube does with it to stream it out causes some of that popping. I have no idea what it caused by. I have no idea if I could do anything about it, but so there you go. Joe Paquette, great content, sir. Ariel says, I'm from the Keweenaw. Where in the Keweenaw? That's one of my favorite peninsulas. It's one of my favorite places on earth. I'll be up there in June speaking at an event at the Calumet Opera House about Big Annie. We'll talk about that a little later on. And Shex Densmore says, I just watched the Ninth Court ruling about the forcing of a thumbprint to unlock a phone. Yeah, and I just don't understand why you got time. Go get a warrant. So many of these cases would be so much simpler to just go get warrants. And I don't know, maybe they're just so used to the idea that, oh, no one's going to complain, and if they do, they'll lose. But just go get a warrant. It's part of your job. The Rockin' Donkey says it's probably an artifact from the compression referring to the popping in the microphone. Very well could be. LRG, did you get the email about the new Florida squatters law? Yes, I've had several people send that to me. Thank you very much. There is a new Florida squatters law in Florida and in Tennessee, and they're talking about them now in a bunch of other states. So Chris Cadman, when was the last time you went to Hell, Michigan? Hell, Michigan's over near Pinckney. I used to go to Pinckney every weekend to go mountain biking at the Potawatomi Trail. But Hell itself is just a little bit beyond that. and I don't go out there all that often. TTF says lower your gain input source too loud. I mean, is it peaking? Because I'm looking at the VU meters here, and it's not peaking. I mean, in fact, it appears to be too low here. So I don't want to go and mess with it right now. Matthew Calloway, hi Steve. Behind the scenes shot is cool. Yeah, you know something? I always do that backwards. There's what's behind the fake wall, including a couple bankers' boxes filled with records of some sort. There is the original light that I used when I used the GoPro in the first Lehto's Law videos 10 years ago. Ali Al Abdul Razak, hi from Kuwait. Thank you for checking in. This is the most amazing thing if you think about it. You know, I'm sitting in my house here talking, and the internet makes it to where people can just check in from anywhere in the world. Skater Lover says, damn, you're quick reading these comments. Yeah, but you have to understand I'm missing like 9 out of every 10. Jonathan Powers says, the audio sounds fine to me. That's the thing. That's the thing. Half the people will claim the audio is horrible. The other half will say that's fine with me. So if it's fine for one person, it must be okay. Errol says, I'm excited you're going to be in Calumet. Well, so am I. Juan Peralta, would you consider doing a reaction series to popular TV judges? You know, I haven't watched any of those TV judge shows in so long. I remember Wapner, of course. Time for Wapner. But it's been a while since I watched any. So, Steve Bragg, how many locations since you started doing this? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 5th. Although there was a couple minor moves in there once or twice where I was in the same place, but I moved to a different room or something. But 5 different studios for the most part. Emmanuel Guerra says, hey, this is Diet Coke money. I appreciate that because Lord knows I can't afford as much as I need. So Conzilla says, I got my copy of American Murder Houses. Thanks a lot, Steve. Very interesting reading. 3 stories so far. And again, the book has got chapters, and each chapter is a different house where a murder took place. And I think I counted as like 25 or 27. About half of them you would have heard of if you simply followed the news. The other half might be more local. Like the General Wayne Inn, for instance, is a little less common outside that area. But like I remember the Wonderland murders. I remember, you know, obviously John Belushi dying. I've had people say, Steve, why is John Belushi in there? Didn't he OD? Well, yeah, but the woman who OD'd him pled guilty to a form of manslaughter. So technically that counts in my book, and it is my book. So there you go. Christian P, do you have any more Murder House books for sale? Well, yes, I have a pile of them. That's trust me. I'll let you know when I run out. I have not run out yet. So if you still want one, or if you want more than one, just send me a note, steve@lehtoslaw.com, book in the title and anything in the text, but you got to tell me what your full name is. I'll get an email from, Funky Monkey 23 at Yahoo, and they'll say, send me one. And I'm like, okay, I'm assuming your first name's not Funky and your last name's not Monkey. Can I need your actual name. Okay. And they go, oh, okay. Kay Keller, why is Michigan car insurance so expensive? It's because of our wacky no fault. You can be the best driver on earth, but somebody plows into you, it's on your insurance. So it's kind of like, well, it doesn't matter if you drive well. The other idiots are out there. Jeff Driver, tell us more about your Finnish background. My grandmother came from Finland. All 8 of my great-grandparents came to America from Finland at one time or another. And they all got together, eventually had offspring, which led to me. And they were primarily leaving because of really, really bad economics and some political turmoil. They all left before Finland had its independence. So like my great-grandfather, who wrote poetry, by the way, he left after he had to serve time in the Russian army. I kid you not. So he was drafted into the Russian army. He spoke no Russian, and the commanders spoke no Finnish. And apparently, as soon as he got out, he's like, I'm getting out of here. And he went to America. Oh, boy. Neuropilot. Hi, Steve Lehto. Cyrus05 says, just on a side note, there's a particular type of lubricant you can apply to the jack on the microphone. I'm wondering if it might help also. You mean the jack that that it has the thing going into it like that. I don't know about that because I mean that I never pull it out. I mean this is well, I don't know. QA Library says Finland is meant to be the best country in the world to live. It's also the happiest, and that might be what you're referring to. They keep winning that happiest nation on earth thing. They got some stuff going for them, but they drink a lot of coffee and a lot of vodka. Doug Pascal, can you please pronounce sauna correctly? And that is how you pronounce it. And the funny thing is, my grandparents had a sauna out behind their camp, which of course is what they call cabins up there. And I remember when I was a little kid, there was a family down the street, and there was a little girl in the family a year or two older than me, who was this real know-it-all. She knew everything. And she said one day, she's like, "Oh, we're going to my friend's house. They've got a sauna. They've got a sauna." And I go, "It's pronounced sauna." She goes, "No, my friend's got one. It's pronounced sauna." And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, and my grandparents have got one, and I've been in it 100 times. Cargo pilot guy, love your content. Almost makes me wish I'd become a lawyer. You know, it's really funny. I've actually gotten recently, very, very recently, I got a note from a guy who was about my age. And he said, "Steve, just to let you know," he goes, "I started watching your videos a couple years ago and decided to become a lawyer. And I became a lawyer, and now I'm practicing law." And he goes, "And I owe that because, to you, because you were the one who inspired me to do it." I'm like, huh? And the thing is, you don't have to become a lawyer at the age of 25. You don't have to. And there's also some people who will do quite well as lawyers later in life because they've got the life experience. Because trust me, you can get straight A's in law school and go to work at a big law firm, and they're going to look at you and go, "But you don't know anything about the world. You might know the procedure and the rules and all that stuff, but you don't know about the world." And so trust me, when they send some partners out to discuss a big lawsuit with a multinational corporation, they can't send a 25-year-old lawyer out there and go, "Yeah, talk to this guy. He's our latest hire." I mean, huh? Chuck Whitehead, have you ever been in a courtroom with a bunch of TV cameras? I have, but not on my case, because my cases have never made television. But I remember there was a famous case in Macomb County, Michigan, where there was an event. I think it was a party, but it may have been a wedding reception. But a fight broke out in a parking lot, and a couple kids got killed, and they were killed by other kids. It was ugly, ugly. And I was just happened to be in the building the day of sentencing. And I'm going to go down and watch this. And I walk into the courtroom, and every single seat is taken. There's people around the walls. And because there was no jury at this point, because this is sentencing, the jury box is filled with cameras. The judge said, "Okay, all the cameras in the jury box." So there's tripods with big cameras and, photographers and press with big handheld cameras. And I mean, I saw the media circus up close and personal at that sentencing, but I've never had that on one of my cases. Pesky Media says, "Love your channel. Have you ever considered doing an episode on each state's craziest law? We have many in contention here in Idaho." It's hard to say. I've seen some of those lists of the craziest laws on earth, and you try to look them up, and half of them aren't real, and half of them are exaggerations. So I've not considered doing that, but it's an interesting thought. Marlene says, "The Finns are the nicest people I've ever met. We went to Russia in '98 via Helsinki, which was rated the best airport in the world by the traveling public at the time. Flew on Delta with a Finnair cabin crew." My mother went to Finland about a dozen times, and she loved going over there. It's a very, very different experience. I've never been there, but I don't speak Finnish, and I worry about that. Beer money for Fiesta in San Antonio, Texas. Hope you can make it someday. This is my first donation ever. West Texas Tornado. I appreciate that. I really do. I've only been to Texas passing through. I've never stopped or spent much time there. And I've heard San Antonio, for instance, is beautiful. Some friends of mine went down there for a legal convention of some sort, and they came back raving about it. So Linda Ward says, "I get a little crackling. It's not bad, and I'm picky as I listen with over-ear sensitive headphones. It's more of a problem that you've frozen twice already." Okay, nothing I can do about that. Sorry. Fraser Osland, have a great day, Steve. I appreciate that. Skater Lover, I used to work at an auto auction. Have you ever purchased a car at one? No, I have not. In fact, I've never even attended an auto auction, I don't think. I was watching Barrett Jackson yesterday. That, of course, is a very, very upscale auto auction, and saw some cars move for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in fact, I saw a Ford GT go for, I think, 900,000, and I forgot something special about it. But big money cars, and I've not been to one. JP points out I've been to all 50 states, and JP is a good friend of mine, and I don't think you'll mind me telling you this, but JP hails from the land to the north, but he works here in the U.S., and he's come to appreciate America in a way that many Americans haven't, because I've not been to all 50 states. I haven't counted, but I think I've probably hit like 25 or 30, and that's counting the ones I've driven through getting to someplace else. So JP's been to all of them. And by the way, JP also goes out of his way to get me t-shirts from wherever he goes. So Loki VA says, Steve, are you using a USB mic system? At this point, I am, yes. Cyrus is wrong. Whereas the plastics, metals, and mechanical design from Nutric is better than Switchcraft, Canon, or Chinese A3MFs. This is considered to be, this is a Nessie Blue, or it's a Blue Nessie, I guess. The company's called Blue. The microphone's called a Nessie. But it's a USB microphone. It's designed for podcasting. It's got what they call zero or near zero latency, meaning that as I'm speaking, I'm hearing it in real time. And I've had microphones that didn't do that, and a slight delay would actually throw your brain off. It's hard to describe, but I like this microphone for that purpose. When I shoot my videos, I don't wear headphones at all anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore. And that turns out, resolves that issue also. Jay Mankey says, you are amazing. Well, I thank you very much for the comment. I appreciate that. I've mentioned before, and I know this sounds hokey for me to say it, but I'm going to say it anyways. You understand that I cannot exist without the audience, because without the audience, I'd just be a guy sitting here talking to myself. So I understand that, I could sit here and talk to myself, but I do read the comments. I read my emails. I read the comments under the videos. I get feedback, and I use that feedback to decide which videos I'm going to do and how I'm going to cover the different stories. And for instance, if it was up to me, I would still be doing those stories about whether or not there's actual strawberries inside a strawberry Pop-Tart. I think those are fascinating lawsuits. My audience couldn't be put to sleep faster than if I did those. So, oh boy. Anecdote you enjoy telling about Jay Leno's cars. I'm not sure what the question is. I've visited Jay Leno's garage 3 times. I've seen him 4 or 5 times in person. I saw him perform at a casino in Mount Pleasant, Michigan late last year. And by the way, he does stand-up. In fact, he's been doing stand-up his entire career. He never stopped. So when he was on The Tonight Show, he was still doing stand-up. And I saw him do an actual set that was over an hour long. And it was funny. It was funny. I mean, it blew my mind. And I actually got to talk to him both before and after his set. And what's interesting is you could tell he was tired. He was worn out from the energy level necessary to go out and do a set that long with that much enthusiasm. But I'll probably also get a chance to see him this summer because that turbine car story. So I don't have any real updates. I saw his turbine car again yesterday, or not yesterday, Friday. I was visiting my brother at the company that's working on his engine right now. And they are getting very close, but they don't have any official dates yet. They don't say, like, here's where it will be done. That's how you get in trouble. Skater Lover, would you ever start talking about celebrity legal matters such as Diddy and Tiffany? I will if I think they're interesting enough beyond the celebrity aspect of it. So if I hear that a celebrity got in trouble for drunk driving, I don't normally do a story just because someone got a drunk driving ticket. So there's going to be something else about it that makes it interesting to me. Other than that, sorry, I just realized I should probably start hydrating now to avoid what's bound to happen in about an hour. C, or I think it's Chris E. I got to give the guy credit. Do you need to answer the door, sleeping in a parked car, under the Fourth Amendment, if the police knock at the window without a warrant? How about Travis Hines being woken up regularly while on the road? I don't know about Travis Hines. I don't even know who that is. But with respect to answering a door, sleeping in a parked car, you have to understand once in a while, you do have to look at these things from the police viewpoint. So let's suppose they get a call and they go, hey, there's somebody in a car, but we don't know if they're okay. They might be dead. I don't know. There's somebody in a car. So the police show up and they look in the window and they see somebody in there. Are they dead? And they might not be breaking any laws. They might not be. But a police officer can say, well, I was just out of concern for the person in the car and knocked on the window to see they're okay. But a better question is if you were to look up and see them and wave and put your head back down, do they have the right to bust in and get you? And I would think that the answer to that is probably no. You probably, if the car is legally parked, especially on private property, let's suppose that you're at the end of a driveway, but it's legally parked, and a cop walks by and he looks and he sees somebody. He knocks on the window and you look up and he goes, are you okay? And you go, fine. Put your head back down and go back to sleep. Dave Beeler, has Punxsutawney Phil returned to your garage yet? No. I have not seen a woodchuck on my property since. I think word got out. The woodchucks are rodentia non grata. They're not welcome here. Oh boy. Somebody says, Willie Mac, I don't comment much, but I love your videos. Thank you very much. And I appreciate that. And that's something that a lot of people lose track of is I'll put up a video that gets 100,000 views and it'll get 1,000 comments. So assuming nobody commented more than once, which by the way happens all the time, that's 1 out of 100 people commenting. So 99% of the people are not reacting at all. And so I have to always remember that the vocal people are a vocal minority, but they are still a good indication of what's going on. Oops. Hang on. Thibaut Surlet says, has the entire concept of the war on drugs resulted in worsening civil liberties, problems such as civil asset forfeiture, militarized police, or qualified immunity? Yes, and yes. The war on drugs, somebody said, we should just declare that we've lost it and just throw in the towel. I don't think we ever do that. I think we just kind of like pack up and go home. But it's so bizarre if you think about how many people went to prison over the weed that is now perfectly legal in so many states. And, I've mentioned before, and I hate to use this word because everybody mishears what I say, but I've often said that as far as things go, I am a lowercase l libertarian in the sense that if you stay out of my way and I stay out of yours and you do your thing and I do mine, I really don't care what your thing is as long as you ain't hurting anybody, and especially not hurting me. And so think back to the 60s or 70s and some guy's sitting in his basement, one toke over the line, sweet Jesus. And next thing you know, he's being busted. For what? So that's, but right now I've got people going, oh my God, Steve's a libertarian. Who'd you vote for in the last election? It's like, no, not the party, the idea. Steve B. Hi, Steve, from Steve in Tasmania. Thanks for checking in, my friend. I love that part of the world. I've never gotten down there yet, but one of these days I will. I have a very good friend who had a transfer student living with her for 1 year here in America from Tasmania. And it's just like, that's got to be the greatest conversation starter. Oh, that's a great accent you got there. What is your accent? Oh, I'm from Tasmania. Carrie Mache says there is no we. There's no we in what? Team? Josh says that came really close to politics. Close, but not quite. Gilbert says many don't know Gilbert's ice cream is from the UP, eh? There's also the Gilbert's place, and I'm always thinking of it just south of Chassel. I assume that's something to do with Gilbert's, right? Perishable Goods 13 made a Cleveland to Monroe trip a few days ago. I like to say Monroe, even though it's Monroe. Monroe, of course, the town that's basically down here, bottom right-hand corner of the state of Michigan, famous for, among other things, that General George Armstrong Custer called it home. So, Gerard, hey, Steve, what were your thoughts on the Black Ghost auction? Oh, did someone tell you to ask me that? Oh, the Black Ghost is a car that was owned by a man in Detroit. And before he passed away, he told his son a bunch of stories about drag racing in that car. And the man was a police officer. And so the story goes that he would get off work as a police officer and then go out on Woodward and go drag racing. And he beat everybody because his car was so fast. And among other things, the car was a stock Hemi Challenger, which is a cool car. It would be a fast car, but no faster than any other stock Hemi Challenger or stock Hemi Cuda or stock big block Camaro. There's no way. There's no way. So the weird part is that a major organization got involved in making a short documentary about that car, and it became famous. I had all kinds of people sending me links going, Steve, watch this. Why am I watching this? It's a story some guy told his son, and he's exaggerating how amazing this car is. But they took the car to auction. Chrysler even put out a Black Ghost edition of the car, of a modern car, and it sold for way more than it's worth. And I've seen videos by other people. Tony's Garage, is that the guy's name? Tony's Garage. Who talks about how just the story is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I've never spoken about it myself, but since you asked, I figure I have to, right? Vic Hibbler says, just watched your compelled fingerprint video. Android allows you to set a lockdown mode from the power menu, which forces a PIN. Yeah, and that's the point, is that if it's a PIN, they can't make you say it because that's testimony. But it's such an odd distinction, and I still have a problem with them being able to grab your hand and, do that, but mind blown watches the Hemi guys that ran well all were stroked to 500 cubes. Yeah, but you got to remember, a 426 was no slouch to begin with. But I am Joe TV. Hey, Steve, much love from Canada. Back to mind blown. I've met guys who worked on developing the street Hemi because they had to make those Hemis available for use on the streets to sell them so they could race them in NASCAR in 1964, I believe it was. And for durability, they actually put one in a test cell and ran it up to 5,000 or 6,000 RPM and just held it there until it blew up. Sounds like a really fun thing to do. Uncle Tony's Garage, Hugh Newton, that's correct, or Hugh Neutron. And at one point, one of the engines blew up. It took quite a while, but it blew up, and it put a piston through the top of the engine, out of the cell, through the roof of the building, and it landed in the parking lot outside in a smoldering crater. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Eaton Paving says, I've seen that car run. It was not stock. Referring to the Black Ghost. What was not stock about it? Because everything I ever saw just said it was, I've seen pictures with the hood up. It's got a battery underneath the hood. Wouldn't you put the battery in the back of your street racing? Nikki J, much love from Mount Pleasant. Thank you for checking in. I mentioned Mount Pleasant a little while ago. I saw the comedy show with Jay Leno up there. Firewolf RL asked us earlier, has your videos affected a case you're working on? No, not really. I get recognized. I've had court personnel tell me that don't you have a channel? Yes, I do. Oh. Joel Bukowski, isn't grabbing a hand for identification purposes other than fingerprinting considered assault? Well, an assault is an unconsented touching, but there's certain kinds of touching that you don't have to consent. Like if you're being arrested, they can grab your hands and handcuff you, right? So, JJ, CEO 40, any thoughts on the future of Stellantis in the U.S.? I don't know that much about Chrysler these days. I know they're not Chrysler anymore, but I drive by their world headquarters from time to time, what used to be their world headquarters, and I have no idea. I haven't been paying much attention to how they're doing and so on. So, Jal Harad, hello from Seattle. Trevor Manausa, and I'm mispronouncing your name most likely, but I know your name because I remember writing it out earlier today on an envelope that I was putting a book into. So thank you for buying my book. I spend more time, I think, on the Sunrise side of Michigan, which is over here, but I do like the Traverse City area, which is the Sunset side. So I'm not picky. Eaton Paving, different gears, different cam and carb, small nitrous bottle under the backseat. I'll have to check because, like I said, all the sources I saw said it was just bone stock. The classic one, any unwanted touch equals battery. That's not 100% correct because then a police officer couldn't arrest you. I don't want you touching those handcuffs. So, DePaul 31, Chrysler was a no-show at the New York Auto Show last week. I remember hearing them talk about that. And I do wonder how much goodwill they get or don't get by being there or not being there. So, Mendy the Ginger family, have you ever had a judge say something funny when he saw you in front of him? Not about me that I can think of. So, Dennis Berman, hey, I cannot find Ben. Believe it or not, Ben, I believe, is behind a license plate right about there. So you can't see me. He's blocked by the big Shure microphone. Eric Landon, hey, Lehto, you missed a critical legal detail in that phone access case and the warrantlessness of it. The individual is a parolee. I'm not sure I missed that. I put it in the story. I talked about it in the story, and I talked about it earlier in this video. So, Whiskey 77 says, you know you're from Michigan when you use your hand to place cities. Yeah, but for the lower peninsula, the upper peninsula is a little harder. So you got the lower here, got the upper here, and then it kind of falls apart because the upper is not quite the scale. So, Chris Cadman, do you now or have you ever owned a motorcycle? I've not owned one. I've ridden one. I've got a brother who's got one right now. He's got a couple, but I haven't done a lot of riding. I will admit that. Alan King, have you ever gone to Houghton or Higgins Lake for vacation? I've never stayed at either one except camping in high school for a day or two at one of them. I forgot which one it was. Of course, Houghton, Higgins, Burt, and mental blank. There's 4 lakes that are named for surveyors. Houghton Lake, of course, named after Douglas Houghton. Mutant says assault is saying I'm going to kick your butt. Battery is doing it. Sort of. Assault can also be an attempted battery. Not just saying it, because if I say I'm going to kick your butt, but I'm too far away to do it to you, then that's not assault. It's got to have usually have the ability to do it to make it a real threat. You said we regarding the war on drugs, says Carl Mache, which was a psyop. The elites, CIA ran drugs. We are not the elites. I'm sorry. Earlier you said there is no we. Yeah, no. I mean, obviously, I was not involved in the war on drugs. Okay, and I doubt that many of the people in my audience ever were. The war on drugs was conducted by various law enforcement agencies, directed to do so by various executive departments in the state and federal governments. So, Mr. Bob Newell, yo, why am I here? That is an existential question. I'm not sure we can answer in just the hour and a half we have left. Donald Westerdale, Otsego. I've been to Otsego Lake. That's not what I'm thinking of. It's Burt, Mullet, Higgins, and Houghton. Those are the 4 surveyor lakes. Jonathan Powers, this is really awesome seeing stuff from a different angle. It's nice to get a different perspective on things. I feel like I'm backstage. I really toyed with the idea about covering that, make it more mysterious. But no, it's not that terribly exciting. So, Bill Stamey, hello from Louisiana. Perishable Goods says, you are here because of two people. There you go. Scott M., first live show I've seen. And that's the whole question. Is there people here who've probably never seen me before do a live stream? There's probably people here who've never seen me before on YouTube, but it's a little less likely. Hey, Mad Max Cars, D at Mad Max Cars in Seattle says hello to everybody. And Mad Max, of course, I know, among other things, Mad Max used to do a call-in with Chris Goodsell down in Australia, and Chris Goodsell passed away a couple months ago. And it's really sad because I'd marked in my calendar going forward the different days we're going to be speaking. And I actually came to a day and it said Chris Goodsell phone call. And I had to go, oh, he passed away. He's not going to be calling. So kind of strange. But Mad Max, good to see you. Or D. Steve by Ryan Hayes. Have you seen those local roadside library book boxes? After finishing one of your books, I left it there. Thought you might enjoy hearing. I've seen them. I've never gone and looked around. And quite frankly, I got more than enough books. There's a one bookcase back there you can see. That's one of like 25 or 30 I've got. I've always been curious to know if there are any good books in there, but I've never been tempted to stop and check them out. But that's cool. That's a nice idea because let's face it, many people get a bunch of books and then never read them again. You read them once, and never read them again, so someone else can enjoy it. Johnny Knoxville, what's for dinner? Dude, that's so far in the future right now. I haven't got time to think about it. And I'm all out of Factor meals, so I'm not doing Factor today. John Lowry, first timer, long time viewer. Hugh Neutron, this is like my second or third stream of yours. Athix FPV, I was on Instagram and came across you talking about a turbine car. I only heard your voice. Looked down really quick to see your young face. It wasn't that long ago. I believe it's a clip taken from the Haggerty Foundation documentary. And so therefore, it's about 2 years ago, maybe. But, hey, I'm starting to age more rapidly. It's starting to accelerate. Oh, God. Guy Lee, just supporting the channel. That Flexi Spot chair you recommended is awesome. Favorite chair in my man cave now. And I'm sitting on one right now, Flexi Spot. And actually, they just sent me another chair. And they said, Steve, we got another chair you got to try. Got it yesterday. And I'll be doing another ad shortly talking about that. So Jude Chase, I did not know you were doing lives. Did them for a while, stopped, just started again about a month ago or so. Edwin CV, do you have a dog? No, I do not. Not at this time. I had two for a while. Bongo Door, what is the My Michigan TV show that you do? I heard you talk about it in a few shows. I'm in Canada. Well, it used to be on the internet, a thing called My TV, MYMI TV. They have an app and you can watch these things. And I was doing a live stream on there every single day for an hour, Monday through Friday. And I stopped doing them when I moved my studio because of the situation I have, which I don't want to get into. But I haven't been doing them in a while, but they've still got a big catalog of shows in there. I was talking more about current events type stuff. 0431 USMC. Love the channel. Any thoughts on the legalities around the cryptocurrency cases and Sam Bankman-Fried's prison sentence? I only followed that a little bit. I think I did watch the American Greed story about it. And the crazy part is that Sam Bankman-Fried, and this is true of a lot of people who get rich, they're treated like geniuses because they got rich. And people, oh, he's rich, he must be a genius. And you discover that there's people out there who are rich because they stole the money. And they're not geniuses, they're just thieves. They're just good, smart thieves. And so Sam Bankman-Fried wound up stealing like billions of dollars. And he's going to prison for, I think, 20 years. So I don't have a problem with that. But I do worry about the fact that like Fortune magazine and the Wall Street Journal will cover these people and go, look at this genius, he's rich. Not a banned account says without civil asset forfeitures, criminals go free. Not at all. Not at all. In fact, most people agree that criminal asset forfeiture is the way to go. So you arrest a criminal, boom. They got money they made off crimes, take it. Criminal asset forfeiture. Civil asset forfeiture is when you rob innocent people. So if you want your $1.99 back, I'll give it to you. Oh, Edwin, CV, what do you do to stay in shape? Not much these days. I got to start running. But in the summertime, I'll run and I'll bike. I have not gotten out much because it's too cold this year. Johnny Knoxville points out that Sam Bankman-Fried got 25 years. I had 20 stuck in my head, but if you're yanking that out of thin air. By the way, anytime you hear me say yanking, and then I say thin air, I'm thinking something else. I'm just correcting it midstream so I don't get in trouble. Oh boy. Jeremy 95531 recently found out that you are on Spotify and set you for auto downloading so I can never miss an episode. Yeah, I'm on iTunes and Google Play and Podbean and all these places, but that's the audio only version. But yeah, I'm there, and you can set those to just play like a playlist if you want to. But the primary thing I do is I shoot the videos and I upload the audio secondarily to those markets. Mrs. Teresa, 1999 says, please explain squatting and what are the consequences if someone is caught. Well, generally speaking, squatting in the old days, the most common thing you heard was that there's an abandoned building someplace. Somebody goes and lives in it. Nobody kicks them out because it's abandoned. And years later, somebody comes along and goes, this guy's been living here for 5, 10, 15 years. What's the story? Oh, he's just a squatter. He's just a squatter. But he doesn't have any legal rights unless he's established it through adverse possession. But when somebody breaks into a house and changes the locks and goes, I'm legally here, I'm a squatter. That's not how that works. Most of them claim that they're legally there because they claim signed a lease with somebody. It just wasn't the owner of the house. Not a band of counsels. Have you covered the Amos Miller food case in Pennsylvania? That does not ring a bell, and I apologize. I do not recognize that. What earbuds are you using? I forgot the name of these. Somebody asked me last time, and I should know because I got them from a musician friend. I actually consulted a couple of people I know who are into audio stuff, and these are like broadcast quality. These are the nicest sounding earbuds I've ever used, but I don't know what they're called. Sorry. They were expensive, though. These earbuds cost more than a microphone. That's how expensive they are. Eric Landis says parolees cannot refuse any law enforcement request to search. Okay. Hammond Egger, you should do a whole video in the moron voice. Which reminds me, I did the video not so long ago. And I talked about the fact that somebody sent me a guitar pick from Muscle Shoals Studio. And I held it up on camera and I said, it's from Muscle Shoals Studio, which is down south. I said, Muscle Shoals is very, very well known as a historic studio where a lot of important stuff got recorded in the early days of rock and roll. And I said, just like Sun Studios in Memphis. And I got a guy who goes, Steve, I said it was famous like Sun Studios in Memphis. I was emphasizing the fact it was in Memphis because it was so far from Muscle Shoals. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. James says they claim to have a lease but changed the locks. All my leases said you can't change the locks. Well, a lot of times the locks are changed by the person who's got the fake lease when somebody actually does have a fake lease. But yeah. Did your brother build your wooden wall background? No. The bookcase behind me on camera, and actually 3 bookcases behind me on camera, were all built by my brother, who's a furniture maker in Traverse City. And the fake wall behind me was built by my good friend Dana. I talked about that in a video a while back. Dana is a handyman I know who makes, he's got a wood shop also. And I showed him my old studio. I said, I want to actually create an identical wall to this so I can put it behind the camera and it'll look like I'm in the same studio. And he made it literally perfect. You have to actually put them side by side to see. Georgiana Thornton says, when will you invoice me for my book? If you've not been invoiced for your book and you sent me an email more than, like, say, a couple days ago, resend it. It probably got caught by spam at one end or the other. I can tell you that right now I've got about 30 or 35 people who I've invoiced a week ago who have not responded. But the vast majority of people get the invoice I send, and it's just I don't send it till I get an email from somebody. So, not a banned account says Pennsylvania seized Amish food, forbidding him to sell it or even to use it to feed his own immediate family. FDA took advantage before he got Robert Barnes as a lawyer. Okay, I'm not sure if I've heard that story or not, but I'm familiar with the fact that the Amish occasionally have run-ins with the law because they will say, for instance, that because of our religion, we prepare food differently than other people do. And we have the right to do that because it's a religious practice. And the question then becomes, if they prepare food a certain way and they sell it, do they have to follow the same laws for food that's being sold? And again, I don't know anything about that particular case, but that doesn't surprise me at all. So I will take a look at that. Brianna CC, have you ever considered working for big law? No. I know guys who got out of law school, went to work at big law firms where they were told, like, oh, you've got to bill 40 hours this week. And they go, okay, I work 40 hours. No. You've got to bill 40 hours. So if you're sitting in your office talking to your wife on the phone, you can't bill that. You're standing in your office talking to your coworkers, you can't bill that unless you're talking about a case. And you suddenly discover that to bill 40 hours, you've got to work like 60 or 70. And I knew guys who literally were like on a treadmill inside a gerbil wheel, like running at full speed, and they couldn't catch up. And I know guys who worked at law firms where they were actually pulled into an office at the end of the year, and they said, hey, we normally give out bonuses, but you didn't hit the numbers you're supposed to hit. So not only are we not going to give you a bonus, but we're going to cut your pay. But if you want to, you can leave. So, I couldn't do that. And big law firms are really, really good, especially if somebody's really into politics in the workplace. Because if you become a senior partner at a really big law firm, you can make a lot of money. So these guys make insane money, but you're also selling your soul. So how many peninsulas, 3 Up, Low, and Lost in Monroe? Trevor, you're talking about the peninsulas in Michigan. They often refer to the 2 big peninsulas, the upper and the lower. But of course, there's the Keweenaw Peninsula, the Garden Peninsula, there's the Leelanau Peninsula, the Old Mission Peninsula, and so on. So, but the official motto of the state of Michigan is in Latin and roughly says, if you seek a pleasant peninsula, look about you. And I actually did a big section on that in my book about Douglas Houghton, because he was running around in Michigan in 1835 when they adopted the seal and then became a state in 1837. Toxic Wheeze. Good afternoon, Steve. Ben Leach, Suits. I've never watched the show. I'm sorry. It's one of those, there's just certain shows that have just missed me entirely. I've never seen a single episode. And I know that woman who married into royalties, is that the one she's on? Never seen it. So the Prodigal Stranger says that's a plethora of peninsulas. They should have said that. If ye seek a plethora of peninsulas, but they said pleasant. So Mrs. Teresa, could you explain swatting? Swatting is a thing. I hate to even talk about it, but there have been examples before where somebody gets angry at somebody. So they call the police department that's nearest to where that person lives, and they call in a fake emergency and claim that something bad is happening, and SWAT teams need to descend on this property. And usually the person who's there does not know what's going to happen. They're surprised by all kinds of armored vehicles in their front yard. And there have been some really, really bad things happen because of that. And so I've always thought it was odd that law enforcement would so quickly jump to assume that a phone call made by some kid in his basement who's upset because he just lost a game on the internet, but so there you go. Michael Lawless, are lawyers taught Latin or just the phrases they need? No, we're not taught Latin. We pick up some of the phrases along the way, only because there's some phrases like res ipsa loquitur, which just, if you know what it means, capsulizes that term so well. The thing speaks for itself. But for the most part, not a lot of Latin's used anymore. Although like mens rea, your mental state, that kind of thing. My grandfather taught in college in the 40s and 50s, and one of the classes he taught was Latin, and he actually taught Latin, and he could theoretically have a conversation with you in Latin if you could speak Latin back, which is, it's a lost art and it's a dead language for a reason. So, Loki VA says classical Latin is not the same as medical or legal Latin. Well, yeah, absolutely, and much of the stuff, we've discussed this before, has evolved by going through other languages. And so we had the debate about a month ago about the origin of the word en banc, or whatever you want to call it. Because at one point it is Latin, but it was also apparently Italian, and may have been German. And by going through these different languages, it's evolved. So there you go. Bob Dabalina says, immigrant here. Thanks for your infotainment. I really have learned a lot about your quirky legal system. Also submitted a story about Stacey Freeman. I'll take a look at that, but I like being called infotainment because it implies it's not just entertainment. There's some information in there. I'm always joking about the infotainment center in your car. This right here is the sign language for the thing that's in your car between the seats. Somebody asked earlier about what kind of cars I've got. And I've talked before about the fact I've got the Viper and the Cobra. Those are my two nice cars. But I have two Ford Explorers. So right now I've actually got four cars. But the Ford Explorers, I have an 02 Ford Explorer with 165,000 miles on it. And I've got a 2019 Ford Explorer that's got 60,000 miles on it, and literally nothing but oil changes on the new one. And on the old one, nothing but oil changes. And once in a while, like a brake job or new battery or tires, wear items. Hang on. Eric Ennis says, in swatting, police duty to verify callers should prevail. You'd think they'd at least use some thought process there. Alien EV says, Steve, if I give you $5, you'll talk about my story? Not necessarily. 10. Oh, boy. Ben E. Brady. Hi, Steve. Retired judge here in Texas. I watch your channel often. Well, good afternoon, Your Honor. It's afternoon here. I'm not sure about Texas. Are you guys pushing noon right about now? Or I forget if you're 1 or 2 hours off from us. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I do not want to. I would not ever want to be a judge. I don't care. It'd be fun on certain cases, but you don't get to pick the cases. Oh, boy. Dan E. Boyd, I have a set of Explorer heads on my Mustang. Are they higher performance or just happen to fit? Flying Auditor, how close are you to Ted Nugent's ranch? I'm not sure. I believe his ranch is over by Jackson, Michigan, which is west of Detroit, a good hour or so. I think, but I'm not 100% certain about that. Earthbound Misfit, I had a 95 Explorer I parked in 2009 with 386,000 miles. Wow. I got my other Ford Explorer, one of my older ones, up to 237,000, but 300. I've never seen that one of my cars I've owned since brand new. Michael Lawless, do you think we'll ever see another constitutional amendment? That's hard to say. That is hard to say. Metal Seer, what is the term for a plethora of plethoras? Plethora squared or cornucopia? Sergey, greetings from Taiwan. Fred Corrado Jr., ever been down a quarter mile? You mean fast? No, I have not. I've toyed with the idea about bringing my Cobra or my Viper to a track and running at one time just to say I did it. My concern, of course, is that I'd be the guy who'd lose control and slam into the wall. So, Eric Landon says, hey, Steve, left you a voicemail years ago regarding a case I won. seriously worth you explaining to others. Well, if you have anything that you can send me as an attachment, such as a judgment or an opinion, send it over. I'll read it. I don't recall getting the voicemail, but that's possible. The prodigal stranger says that ranch was, I believe, condemned for black mold, and Ted now lives in Texas. My understanding was that he owned a big chunk of ideal hunting property. Like there were a lot of like wild animals on there that you could hunt legally. So it might be the buildings were condemned, but I wonder if he still owns the property or not. Dan Boyd says the Explorer heads from the old 5.0s are like 5.0 Cobra heads. They fit and they add power. Very cool. Dan Thistle says, oh my God, Lehto is live. No, this is a recording, and I just anticipated your question. Alien EV, do you really like the food you promote? Yes. And I this is something I think most people understand me well enough to realize this. But I've been approached, I'm not making this up, hundreds of times for companies saying, we will pay you to promote this product. Hundreds of times. And I shoot down 80 to 90% of them out of hand, simply saying, I will not promote that. I don't care if it's the best that on earth. I'm not going to promote it. No one's going to buy the fact that I actually care about that. I just don't. No one's, hey, Steve's really into underwater basket weaving courses, and he says these are the best. But I've told a few people, that sounds interesting. Send it to me. And if I like it, I will consider advertising it. And I've shot down more than half of the ones that were sent to me because I'm like, I tried it. I didn't like it. I could not get here on this camera or on that camera and say, hey, everybody, this widget right here is the best widget on earth. I use one. I couldn't say it if I didn't. And I couldn't do that. So Factor meals, I order them, I eat them, I like them. And I'm not just saying that because they pay me. I tried them and I like them. And I'm like, I love these things. This chair, they gave me this chair and I said, I need to try the chair before I promote it. They gave me the chair and I'm like, I'm still using it. I sit in this chair. My old chair's over there. All forgotten. It's covered in stuff right now. I'm using it as an extra t-shirt hanger. So Matt at War, please keep your channel mostly ad-free. That's the other thing. And by the way, I should probably tell you this. I have an agent now. I have an agent who helps me sell my books. Okay. So I have an agent who helped sell me this book to a publisher. I have an agent who I've told, if you can find advertisers that would fit my channel that agree to all my terms, let's talk. And he has found me a couple and he's pitched me a ton. And I said, no. And I actually said to him once, I go, does it bother you to keep saying no? And he goes, no, I completely understand what you're doing. So that's why he's my agent. And so I'm not going to ever do ads every single day. And in fact, I think right now I'm doing 2 a month. 2 a month. So if I put up 60 ads in a month or 60 videos in a month, 2 ads where it's me pitching the thing at the end. If that's too much for you, I'm sorry, but I think that's a decent balance. Old man butt wrinkles says, Steve, I've been in a V8 powered Gremlin doing 120. I think you'd be okay in a Viper on a drag strip. I'm just getting freaked out at the thought of a V8 powered Gremlin doing 120. My brother had a Gremlin X years ago, but I don't think it did 120. Didn't have a V8 in it either, I don't think. Maybe it did. It's probably a small one. But my concern is, generally speaking, if you point the car straight and then jump on it, it'll go straight. That's what you always hope. And I have not even gotten into how far my Cobra gas pedal goes. I have not done that yet. I've only got 400 miles in the car. I literally have got 400 miles on my Cobra right now. And the last time I had it out, I leaned on it a little bit and it scared me. It's scary. And it's it's fast. It's faster than my Viper. So Gilbert says you can do fun runs at Waterford usually on weekdays. Mustang Club, Porsche Club. Don't have to drive one of those kind of cars though. You space yourselves out and just drive. Like I said, I'm just paranoid. Dan Boyd says a 304 and a Gremlin is quite a ride, I'd think. Yeah, but you got to drop in an LS, right? I was watching Barrett Jackson yesterday, and the LS swap, of course, is the engine that people swap into everything. And I saw an old Mustang. I forgot what year it was, but a late 60s or early 70s Mustang with an LS in it. I'm like, what? Is that right? I don't know. Taz1669 says, Steve, I like the way you add the advert at the end and not in the middle, so if people don't want to watch, they can just stop watching. And by the way, just to let you know, that's one of my requirements. I told advertisers I will not put the ad anywhere else but at the end. If you don't like that, don't care. I'll do just fine without you. Chris Cabin says, Steve, I have a business that sells 3 socks. So you get 2 out of the dryer. Interested? You should patent that. Would you patent that or trademark that? I don't know. Dan Boyd says, just say no to the LS. Janet Ross, what do you think about those eye-searing purple headlights? I've seen all kinds of weird headlights and light bars on vehicles. And I mean, when you're driving down the road in broad daylight, somebody's got their lights on, it hurts your eyes. Like, what are they accomplishing with that? You know? Jonathan Powers, thoughts on a Hurst shifter. I never understood the whole idea of a Hurst shifter. Now, I understood the idea of a Hurst Miss Golden Hurst shifter pageant, which somehow Linda Vaughn won every single year. I think they just named her that title and she's became official for the rest of time. I met Linda Vaughn at a car show a couple of years back. She was signing copies of her book right next to me where I was signing copies of my book. And I got a picture of myself with her signing a book. And I don't think my brother will mind me saying this, but I've got a brother who would go see Linda Vaughn at the Autorama every year and get her to sign posters and stuff. And he had the posters in his bedroom. My mother was not happy. So when Linda Vaughn had a brief moment, I said, by the way, Linda, I've got to tell you, I have a brother who used to go see you every single year at Cobo Hall and get your autograph. And I go, his wall was covered with your posters, all signed to him. And my mom got so upset. And she goes, oh, that's so good to hear. Oh, boy. Gilbert remembers Linda Vaughn. Nice. She's just a nice person. She's one of those people. I mean, don't get me wrong. She got hired for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is she has very, very nice blonde hair. Okay. So you can pick her out in a crowd. There's something very Dolly Parton-esque about her hair. She's got the big blonde hair. And she's a really friendly, outgoing person. And so she makes a great spokesperson. But getting back to the Hurst shifters, I never understood why a Hurst shifter in a streetcar is better than the typical shifter it came with. I never heard of like a shifter, a manual shifter in a car being a problem, but you got to put in a Hurst. Like, why? And of course, some of them did, of course, come with Hurst shifters later on, like a Hurst Olds, I'm guessing. 6 Oaks Farm. Steve, I met Jungle Pam once. Was a good day. Jungle Pam, of course, is a backup girl, I believe they call that, where they will often have women who will help the guys back their cars up after they've done the burnout to get their back tires nice and toasty. And occasionally they will dress provocatively to give the audience something to watch while a car is simply backing up. JJCEO 40, did you have the Farrah poster back in the day? No, I was not a big Farrah fan. Farrah, of course, was the girl with the big hair. And she became famous because she was in a Noxzema commercial. And then later she transitioned into acting and was one of the Charlie's Angels. So Gilbert says those would be huge tracts of land, guys. Well, yes. There we can tie Monty Python in with Linda Vaughn and explain it all. Alien EV, is that an Eddie Bauer shirt? Yes, this is. Wow, that is freaky. There you go. Eddie Bauer. These shirts, I've mentioned this before, and I've got like 30 of these, are the most comfortable t-shirts ever created or developed by anything on earth. And I've got a variety of them. I wear them. I do have other shirts, but lounging around, and it started to become a joke that I wear these on Fridays, so I also wear them on my live streams now. DePaul 31 says Linda and Dolly share other big assets. Yes. I wonder if they ever met. Burning Sensations, thank you for checking in. Steve, well, a Hurst shifter will get you, we're faster. David Preston, what is your opinion on First Amendment auditors? Could you ever treat cops like they do? No, I couldn't. And by the way, just so you know, it would not reflect well on me as an attorney, unfortunately, because I have to deal with law enforcement from time to time as an attorney. And so I actually give police more respect. But likewise, I've had it returned. I've actually had a police officer once pull me over in Royal Oak, and he looked at me, he goes, "Do I know you?" And I said, "I don't believe so." And I thought he was thinking, like, have I ever pulled you over before? And he goes, "Are you a police officer?" I said, "No." And he said, "Oh," he goes, "I think I've seen you in court." And I said, "Well, I'm an attorney." He said, "Oh, okay. Okay." And he's polite to me, so don't know if that had anything to do with it or not. Herschel Sanders says, I had a 70s Roadrunner that had a Hurst shifter with a pistol grip. And the pistol grip was cool. So rarely are there innovations in things as mundane as the actual handle on the shifter. And Chrysler, of course, with their race cars, Scat Pack, Road and Track, RTs, all that stuff, the pistol grip was the cool shifter handle you could get. And so a 70 Roadrunner, of course, the same base car that's a 70 Superbird. And I've seen a lot of those in Superbirds as well. Steve says, I just Googled Linda Vaughn. She has nice big hair. Yeah, and like I said, she's still around. And by the way, and don't take this the wrong way, but when I saw her just a couple years ago, looked great. And I suspect that for her age, she looks really, really great. I don't know how old she is, but Don Lupakis, you ever wear an Ohio State shirt? I have. I had one sent to me, and I've said specifically I will wear it when it comes up in rotation, except during football season. So there you go. Bon Gondor, hey Steve, what's the difference between cotton and heavy cotton? I have no idea. I don't know. I like cotton clothing, though. It feels better. David Kingsley, what do you think about Carolina squatted cars and trucks? The weird things that people do to make their cars look goofy, like when they squat or when they're jacked way up, or I'm not too crazy about that, but something to each his own. If you do it to your own car, whatever. And I can tell you that in some states it's illegal to mess up the angles too much because your bumper, for instance, might need to be a certain height off the ground. But Trevor Manausa says, do you love Eddie Bauer because they're Ford editions or just coincidence? No, it's funny. I've never owned an Eddie Bauer edition Ford Explorer. Never have. But I've had a bunch of Eddie Bauer clothing, and the clothing stuff is extremely high quality. And so I just noticed that their stuff lasts a long time. The funny thing is I've spoken to women before, and I've mentioned that there's certain clothing I like because of the fact that it's high quality and it lasts longer. And I've actually had a woman say to me, Steve, do you understand durability is the last thing a woman cares about with a pair of shoes? And I'm like, but I've got a pair of Doc Martens that are 15 years old and they still look brand new. And they go, no, 15-year-old shoes would never cut it in their world. But in mine, yes. So Oscar Love, hello from Las Vegas. Hello from southeastern Michigan. Dan Fissel, ever drive a Ford Police Interceptor utility? Only SUVs I buy anymore. Fast, furious, and safe. No, I've never driven anything with a Police Interceptor package or anything like that. I know that's what they drive, but David Kingsley, my grandparents still have an Eddie Bauer Explorer. 808 Eco Beat says women only wear their shoes once anyway. Buffalo by Bicycle, fan of the channel here from Buffalo, New York. Thanks for checking in. I appreciate it. I've got friends in Buffalo. Buffalo is a cool place. Buffalo, for some odd reason, gets hammered by the weather. Every couple of winters, it seems, that they just get dumped on because of the lake effect snow, because they're at the end of Lake Erie like that. And I know that there have been some bad storms that go through the Midwest, and for some odd reason, it really focuses on Buffalo. So I feel sorry for you guys in the heavy snows. The Prodigal Stranger, what color was your first Ford Explorer? I had a red one, a black one. I've had several green ones, a maroon one, and I think that's it. But I don't remember the red, black, and green. I know the green came third, so red and black, but I forgot which came first, the red or the black. I went through a bunch of short-term leases, like a year or two, and so I didn't get emotionally attached to those. Laura Reed said this woman goes for durability in shoes. If I bought you a pair of Doc Martens, would you wear them? I'm not talking about Doc Marten like boots or high heels. I'm talking about just Doc Martens in the classics. Bon Gondor says, hey, I'm in Western Canada if you want to talk about weather and snow. Well, I'm talking about the fact that it seems that if you were to graph how much snow landed everywhere in America and color code it, you'd see a big spike at Buffalo. It's other places above them and below them that don't get how much they get hit with. So Brianna CC says RFK and LBJ did not get along. Now, out of context, I have no idea we're saying that, but that is absolutely true. So Dan Boyd says, I had that dark green on a 92 Mustang. Yeah, they called it a state green. I believe that's what they called it. And what's sad is I actually bought a replacement green Explorer the exact same year as the 02. So the 02 I have now is the second 02 Explorer I've owned, and they're both a state green. And I posted a photograph of the two of them next to each other in a parking lot the day before I had the old one towed away. And I had one guy go, Steve, you're colorblind. Your old Explorer is blue. Don't know what's wrong with you. Yeah, I drove a car for 13 years and didn't know what color it was. And the window sticker said estate green. And all that had happened was it was dirty. And it was, I think, in the shadow. And the new one was in the sunlight. The guy goes, Steve, you've been driving a blue Explorer. You just didn't know it. You probably got blue-green color blindness. A friend of mine's got that too. Okay, a friend of yours might have it. I don't. David Preston, you ever wear an LA Chargers shirt while Jim Harbaugh is here? Now, see, sir, I just noticed that you misspelled Chargers both times, which makes me think you're cutting and pasting. But I don't follow NFL. And I was very, very disappointed that Jim Harbaugh left. I was so disappointed. And I understand why he's doing it. And I completely get that. But Jim Harbaugh coached Michigan, and their last 3 years under him were stellar. They're just insanely good seasons. And he had the possibility of going down in history as somebody like a Schembechler or a Woody Hayes or these guys who like have buildings named after them. Fielding Yost, and he could have done that. And he said, no, I want to go back. I want to go back and try to win the Super Bowl. And so I guess if you're a football guy, that's it. But something, there's also something to be said for being in a program with that tradition and being one of the guys who can say, I was there for 10 years, 20 years, and shaped the program in like eons, not just one season or 2 seasons. Because don't get me wrong, there's guys who have 1 or 2 good seasons. But think of Nick Saban and how much time he's spent someplace and how much he's accomplished there. And so I don't know. I was very disappointed in him. I was hoping he'd stay, but he left. But I don't follow the NFL, so it's like, oh, there he's gone. So oh, MH08, congratulations on 500,000. Thank you very much. By the way, last week's live stream, I said I'm real close. I'll probably hit it on Tuesday. Tuesday I hit it. So 500,000 subscribers. Greatly appreciate that. David Hastings said, back in the day, my wife owned a 74 Maverick Grabber 302. That car scared me. That was the cool thing. There was a time when all of the car companies said, you know something? We'll make a high-performance version of anything. Cosworth Vega? Sure. Grabber Maverick? Sure. Gremlin X? Why not? Mario Mlechka says, Steve, you need to get on U.S. Supreme Court just to handle 100 or so cases to straighten out America. Then you can continue enjoying yourself with shirts and cars. 100 cases? I'm not sure they handle that many a year, do they? Sounds like a lot of work. Gilbert says, you did hit it on Tuesday. I did. Split/scream. Congrats on 500K. Toxic Whis says, Steve, I got to know how many widgets do you have? And civil asset forfeiture be used to take your widgets? Why do they only ever take cash? Why not house and cars? They will occasionally take other stuff, but money is just so hard to defend. But if you said, hey, Steve, we're going to take this watch from you, we think it's the proceeds of crime, right? Well, I can take me a few minutes, but I can dig up the box it came in and the receipt I used, when I bought it. And I can explain much more about this than I can about the $7,000 you found in the shoebox in the trunk of my car. Where did this shoebox come from? Gilbert says, you forgot hypo javelins and matadors. I was actually going to mention the AMXs. AMC made some pretty cool cars, but man, they also made some ugly cars. The Gremlin, the Pacer, the Marlin. Troy built says, my 16-year-old brother hit a house with his Maverick. Every now and then you hear a story about like that, and you go like, well, how do you hit a house with your car? Janet Ross says, durability is important for me. Again, in footwear, because like I said, the woman I was talking to said this to me like it was so like that's the last thing women care about when it comes to footwear is durability. To a guy, it's like, wait, these will last forever? I'll take one pair. I don't need two pairs. Dave Beeler says the AMX is a great sibling of the AMC Javelin. And there was an AMX the one year with the red, white, and blue color scheme, which was kind of tacky at the time. I think it looks kind of cool now. So Salvador Elvin Gonzalez says, ever take your cars to a Cars and Coffee? I do all the time. I will take my Cobra to the first Cars and Coffee at Pasteiners this summer when it's actually warm out. But I always look at Saturday's weather in advance to see, because they're in Birmingham, Michigan. So as of right now, for instance, they're calling for Saturday to be 70, but rainy. So I can't drive my Cobra in the rain. So we'll see. But it's got to be warm and sunny. I'll take it there. So what is your favorite colors? One link at a time. Depends on the car. There are certain cars that look great in certain colors, but like the lemon lime green, the Dayglow green that you get in a Superbird looks great on that car. Looks great on a GTX or a Roadrunner. I would not want that lemon lime green on a Corvette. It's just something about certain colors. But I mean, I've seen a lot of good looking red cars. And I like Ferrari red. I like that on that almost always looks good in a car. So now we jumped here. Carrie Mache says, those aren't women. They're vulture capitalists. I'm a women name is not Carl LLC. It's Carrie. I have boots from 30 years ago. Oh, okay. JJCEO40, do you have any recommendations on fitness trackers? I used to wear a Garmin watch, and it malfunctioned after a few years. And then they upgraded it to one that only worked with your phone as an app. And I'm like, well, I can just put the app on my phone and not get the watch. So right now I use I think Strava to track my runs and so on. But I stopped wearing a specific, I literally just have a digital watch. I wear a Timex, $25. MG Mustang 05 says the K cars were junk. You talking about the Chrysler K cars? Oh my gosh. They were junk, but they pulled Chrysler out of the doldrums because they were cheap. And there was a time when you could sell a car cheap. It lasted a couple of years and got out of warranty. It was okay. So the Angry Vet, I have a huge story for you. Can I send you my motions? If you've got documentation for a case that's ongoing, you can send them. I'll take a look at it. I don't know necessarily that I can help you or do anything with it, but send it over. Brianna CC says, what year is his Cobra? My Cobra is a backdraft replica. And so it is technically last year because I bought it last year. And I can get you a picture of same for those few people who don't know. So I did take it out about a week ago, and I went out and got ice cream. So there's my Cobra. Let's see here. There we go. And me holding a sundae, a strawberry sundae in front of it. But the thing about Cobras, for the most part, is they tend to look alike. So it's not like a Mustang from year to year might have differences and so on. Natasha Nix, what about the stylish Ford Taurus? Ford Taurus, they sold a boatload of those things. And I knew people who had them. They're dependable cars, nice four-door car, full-size car and whatnot. Doug Jones, the AMC Pacer, when you're done driving it, you use it for a greenhouse. Oh, my God. My mom had a Pacer, and it was just weird. It was, but again, I was thinking outside the box, but it had a kind of a bulgy shape to it. It was just strange. Geary Rexworks says no blue. No blue? My Cobra's blue. Root beer, specs on the Cobra, engine and trans. It's got a Coyote, 5-point Roush Coyote, aluminum block, aluminum heads, dual overhead cam. And it's pushing over 500 horsepower, but it's about 1,000 pounds lighter than my Viper. So, Arashi Blue Wolf, how do you choose the stories for your videos? Surely some must be left behind in your inbox. Something, I literally just look at the stories and go, which one do I think will resonate better? There are some stories I'll eventually do because just so many people have asked about it, but there's no science to it. Geary says the Cobra looks fine in blue only, implying that okay, we'll make an exception this one time. Carlene Stinson, we called the Pacers fish bowls. Oh boy. Mike the Mechanic says a Pacer is a pregnant gremlin. And how did the gremlin get in that position? Oh boy. Michael Ewan, would you watch an EV car race? I don't know why, but I find that making a car an EV doesn't interest me as much in how fast it goes because there's so many figuratively moving parts inside of a combustion engine that I'm curious about how these guys can tweak so much horsepower out of such a small space. And motors, to me, just kind of like, we know how they're doing. It's a motor. So Gary Rexworks says Cobra blue, good. Other cars blue, no. Oh, Tank O Military, do you fix your vehicles or take them to a shop? Depends what's wrong with them, but lately I've been taking them to a shop. I found an extremely, extremely good mechanic. And so in the old days, I used to do oil changes, water pumps, radiators, all kinds of stuff like that. I've done starters. I've laid on my back underneath a car that was up on ramps in the wintertime, helping my brother drop a transmission out of a car to get at the clutch. But I don't do that anymore. Although I did, a friend of mine, had something come loose on his car the other day. And he was in my driveway, and I broke out zip ties and I fixed it for him. So I can still fix something with zip ties and duct tape just as good as anybody else. Michael Johnson, have you ever driven a Model T? No, I have not. And my good friend Mark Lieberman of Nostalgic Motors has got a race car based on, I believe, a Model T. It is the coolest thing. It's got a Columbia body. Technically, it's got 2 seats, but it's designed for one driver, basically. Well, I think somebody can sit on the other side. Open everything. Must have been frightening to drive. Very, very cool. But he hasn't got it running yet. And I keep looking at it going, that'd be a cool car to own. But it's probably so far beyond the realm of my knowledge that I couldn't keep it running on my own inexpensively. And I don't know if I want to get a car right now. It's a money pit. So don't want a channel says I learned to drive in a blue Gremlin. I learned to drive in a green Gremlin. I have no photographs of it though, which is sad. When you're a teenager and you're driving a Gremlin, back when Gremlins weren't cool, you don't think to yourself, boy, someday I'll wish I had a photograph of this. So I took no photographs. My Alaska, hi, Steve. I watch a lot of your videos. Thanks for making them. Well, thank you for watching. I appreciate it as well. Alina DK, I remember my first car was a 2001 yellow Ford Mustang. That can't be that bad. I mean, if it was a Mustang 2 from a few years earlier, that can be bad. But that sounds pretty cool. Yeah, QA Library points out that Dickie Betts passed away. And Dickie Betts, of course, best known as one of the guitarists in the Allman Brothers. And he wrote a bunch of the famous songs that you've heard by them. I saw the Allman Brothers live a few times, and he is one of those guys where hang on a second. He helped develop that sound the Allman Brothers had, where they had a couple guitarists playing back and forth during solos, for instance. And I really think that those guys elevated guitar playing to a different place. And there are different people out there who've done that. You know, Les Paul, of course, had a lot to do with the electrification of the guitar. And then, of course, you know, like what Chuck Berry did with the guitar, like, what? What? Okay. And then, of course, you got Hendrix, right? You got Eddie Van Halen. And I think that the Allman Brother band, so you got Dwayne, who passed away, sadly, a long, long time ago, and Dickie Betts in particular, you listen to a lot of their early stuff, and what they were doing was so groundbreaking that nowadays you go, oh, that's Allman Brothers, and you recognize it. But Dickie Betts passed away, and unfortunately, you know, like I said, I've seen the band play a bunch of times, and it's just sad because he was so important to that moment in time and what he did with the guitar. Josh points out the Allman Brothers were a solid band. They were. Madame Lestrange says, my first car was a used dark blue Chrysler LeBaron. I shot more than on the road. LeBaron. Chrysler thought by calling it that would make it seem cooler than it really was, because it was not cool. Natasha Nix says, Eat a Peach. Of course, a famous album by the Allman Brothers. Trevor Manousis says, the Fox, Fillmore, or theaters of the yesteryear. I'm not sure what we're talking about there. Occasionally I miss the first half of a conversation. I got no idea what you guys are talking about. You're not talking behind my back. Carlos Santana, Mr. Black Omegon. Santana is one of those guys who literally, and you know, they called the band Santana, but Carlos Santana, of course, was a guitar player, and quite often other people were singing, similar to, like, say, Alan Parsons, where he wasn't singing in a lot of the songs, other people were. Same is true with Manfred Mann. But Carlos Santana, I remember my brothers having a Braxis, you know, a Santana album back in the 70s. And if you had told me that he's going to have a hit record 30 years from now that'll get airplay on top 40 stations, I would have said, never in a million years. Never in a million years. And there he was. And he was just a guy who just, and by the way, he likewise was very instrumental and inventive with the guitar. And the places he played and his longevity, it's hard to imagine a career that long in music. And it's impressive. Gilbert says, I had a Levi Jeep 82 Laredo. Yeah, don't forget there's like the Levi Gremlin also. I believe you get a Gremlin that had Levi material on the seats. It was still a Gremlin, but it had Levi material on the seats. Michael Ewan, have you ever thought about getting a private pilot's license? I get asked that from time to time. No, not really. Not too crazy about it. But I know people who are pilots. My brother's a pilot. I've flown in small planes many, many times, but I've just never thought about it in terms of, like, you know, do you buy a plane? A very good friend of mine was an attorney. He owned a dual engine plane. And he used to come in and tell me how expensive the maintenance was and the checkups you had to have done and all that stuff. It's crazy. Sammy Sierruinen, first car back in the mid 90s when I got my license as a mid 80s Peugeot 205. Perfect small thing to run through endless nights of the Finnish Lapland. Greetings from Finland. I apologize for mispronouncing your name, but I mispronounced my own. So there you go. Speaking of Finns, of course, my favorite Finnish singer these days is Lauri Pekka. And I'm mispronouncing that also. That's the best I can do as a non-Finnish speaker. But Lauri Pekka is a Finn who sings, and that's his stage name. And he announced on his Facebook feed earlier this week, last week, that he's going to retire. And I thought he meant retire from music. Turns out he's going to retire that name. So I have not seen him perform, but he only performs in Finnish. And so he must not speak English very well, because if he could, he'd be singing his songs in English and making more money. But as a Finnish only singer, he's kind of limited to Finland, but I know he's quite popular there. But look him up, Lauri, Lauri, Taka, Tahka. And there are umlauts in there I'm missing. I apologize. It's actually Lauri Pekka. Okay. Sammy says, no worries about the last name. Even Finns cannot say nor write it 9 out of 10 times. Oh, boy. Random non-interesting guy says, wow, first time catching a live, been watching for over a year now. And by the way, I got to tell you, I got the lawnmower out today. I mowed my backyard. Oh boy, first time for everything. Dara Doak had a 70s era Pacer. My dad picked it out for me. It not only looked like a fishbowl, but it drove like one. Oh, yeah, no. The cool thing about it was they actually put the glass in such a way that like you didn't have the pillars blocking your blind spots, but it did magnify the sun. So. David Kingsley, my favorite band is Nightwish. They're Finnish, of course. They're huge. Nightwish. And they've performed here in America. They play a place at the Royal Music Theater, and they won't sell it out. It's sad. It's sad when you see a band like that, but very, very talented musicians. And they have a style of playing. It's heavy metal, hard rock, but a little more artistic than you might expect. So, Madam Lestrange said, I had a Grand Am. It got totaled. I bought another Grand Am that got totaled 10 days later. Yeah, at that point, stop buying Grand Ams. So, Daniel Kester, how you doing, my friend? A 4-cylinder airplane, just a basic engine lineup, well, over $1,000. I assume you're talking about the cost of maintenance, those and checkups and all that stuff. And yeah, it's expensive. And they say if you want to really burn money, you buy a boat. You want to burn it faster, buy an airplane. Oh boy. JJCO40 says, I thought you had a lawn tractor. Yes, I ride on it and I mow the lawn. Kenneth Darkwater, I hate yard work. Glad I live in the Mojave. It's kind of funny. I remember growing up in my neighborhood, there was one or two guys who, like, the old guy who mows his lawn like 3 times a week. He's out there with like a ruler checking it to like make sure it's got the perfect crew cut. And I never thought I'd be that guy. And I realize I'm slowly becoming that guy. Now a curmudgeon says, have you ever bought a tool that only did one thing and used it just once? So far, yes. I had a tree on the side of my property that was in a windstorm. It had a V in it, and in a windstorm, one half that went and fell over. And I thought, okay, that's a problem. I got to go over there and take care of that. So I go over there, and it's about 10 feet off the ground where it's split, but it's split and it's leaning on another tree that's dead. So this is an excuse to break out the chainsaws. And I got a couple steel chainsaws. To me, those things are like fine surgical instruments. I break out the chainsaw. I go over there, fire up the chainsaw, and I take out the dead tree, chop it up. And the tree that's falling now falls like another bit. And it's still hung up over here. It's hung up at the trunk. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Because I don't want to climb. I've got a brother who will climb a tree one-handed with a chainsaw and be like chopping stuff down. I don't like to leave the ground with my chainsaw. So I could climb a ladder, but the ladder still would have me put the chainsaw over my head. And rule number 1 of the chainsaw is never hold it over your head while it's running. It actually says that. Owner's manual. Rule number 1, do not use over your head. Okay. But I'm like, what? So I go to Home Depot. I'm looking for ideas, and I find this pole that's got a one of those branch saws on it, and you can extend the pole 17 feet. And once you've extended it, you can then put the hacking part of the blade on it, just go like this a few times, and boom, down it fell. So I've got that thing in my garage now, and you can collapse it back down to 9 feet or 8 feet. And I'm looking at it going, am I ever going to use that again? Like, I might, but I doubt it. Grubby old Pages says, hello from Detroit today, checking in. Thank you very much. Right now, apparently the NFL draft is going on in Detroit. And people are freaking out like it's a Super Bowl. It's like, no, this is the other end. This is where they draft the people, not where they're playing. So Ted Wigman says, why not rent the chainsaw? I've got 2 chainsaws. Most self-respecting guys who own property have got chainsaws. Unless you literally have nothing on your property. I mean, I've taken bushes out with my chainsaw. Now, I've got a brush cutter, which I now use to take out brush. But in the old days, I would just get down, So, Avenging Emma Peel says, you should hire folks who do tree work to handle trees. Those suckers can fall how you least expect it. You have no idea. So my brother who lives up north has got a big chunk of property, and he knows the property intimately. We'll be walking around and goes, oh, there's a maple tree, there's a cherry tree, there's this, there's that. And one day, back when I had my army truck, I lived in a house at a fireplace. And my brother told me, he goes, if you bring your army truck up here, I'll load it up with firewood for you. I got so much wood here, it'll blow your mind. And I go, okay. So I bring my army truck up there. I go, what do we got? And he goes, let's go take out a couple trees. He goes, I've found a couple trees for you. And he goes, there's a dead maple tree. It just died, but it's about this big around. This thing will provide you firewood for like the rest of your life. Okay. I'm like, cool. And it's right at the top of a little ravine that goes down. And it looks like it's leaning away from the ravine. And I'm looking at it from different angles, and I'm going, wait, Dave, which way is this thing going to fall when you cut it? And he goes, oh, it'll fall this way, away from the ravine. Boom, it falls in the ravine and rolls away. And he goes, okay, I know there's another one over here. They do not fall the way you want them to. And I've had a couple situations where I've had a tree that fell and got caught on something. And then it's like a game of almost like pickup sticks, where you're trying to go, okay, if it's falling on this and I cut this over here, will that help it fall this way? And so far, I've had no close calls. I'm usually pretty safe about this stuff, but I actually wear the ear protection, the eye shields, gloves, all that stuff. So Scott M says, zero turn mower, best mower I ever bought. I've never had a zero turn. So Loki VA says, lawyers who work for chainsaw companies enforce disclaimers about plunge cuts and other normal uses need disbarring, which of course is a play on words, I'm guessing, because there's a chainsaw bar also. Yeah, something, most people, they read the manual to make sure they're starting it right. And at that point, all bets are off. So you want to be swinging from a tree upside down and be using this thing like it's knock yourself out. I like to tell people, the warnings, like for instance, if you read the warnings on a Q-tip box, it says, number 1, never put these in your ear. It's the only thing people use them for. That's like if your watch said, never put this on your wrist. Ad Libertor, how's your running going? It's off to a slow start, but you did ask, marathon this year? Yes, I have registered for the Free Press Marathon. So I've registered. It's in October. I've got 6 months of training that I've got to do because I haven't started yet. JB Weld, Wagner or Chopin? I'm not a big classical guy. Last time I mentioned this, an argument broke out. I'm a big Mozart guy. I like Mozart a lot. I'm familiar with some of the other stuff, but I don't listen to classical music all that much. So Jerry Brown's warnings are for stupid people. Josh, I have a pole saw attachment for my weed whacker. I end up using it for cutting stuff on the ground without bending over more than I should. That's also very similar to how my brush cutter works. My brush cutter looks like a weed whacker, but it's got a big buzzsaw at the end of it. And that thing, you can walk into the brush, a thicket of brush that's impenetrable, and just you swing the thing in front of you and the stuff just falls over like it's nothing. So Thomas Hoot says WABX stickers need to go back up. I agree. I'll put them up shortly. David Kingsley says Nightwish, the Finnish band we're talking about, is actually its own genre now due to how encompassing their music is. Generally heavy metal symphonic orchestral. Okay. And that's what I was trying to explain, the fact they're very different and extremely talented. And I like to see musicians who have a deeper knowledge than 3 chords. Floor Jansen of Nightwish sings a great version of Ghost Love Score. I'll have to check that out. That's from Gary Rexwork. Thank you very much, my friend, for highlighting that. QA Library was the London Marathon today. I did not realize that. The Boston Marathon was not so long ago. That often falls on tax day or thereabouts. And I missed it. I will often, if I can play hooky, call it up on another screen and just have it silently in the background. But yeah, Earthbound Misfits says hair dryers have a warning to not use in the shower. Because if they didn't, people would say, well, how would I know that? Biz Valkyrie says, I missed a Nightwish discussion. Not much, but I love Nightwish and other orchestral and power metal groups. Joel Sibisky says, what do you listen to, Tool or the Bee Gees? Both. I love them both. I've got Tool, I've got the Bee Gees. My tastes run all over the place. And I literally, if I tell people, if I purposely showed you my playlist and said, okay, this, you'd be like 3 songs, and you'd be like, I don't even know what you're talking about anymore. But Tool is obviously very, very heavy. Might be considered dark, but extremely talented musicians. And it's very listenable for the right kind of mood. The Bee Gees I love also. So Doug Jones says they put the lever on the lawnmower handles, the engine shuts off because people are clearing grass on the discharge chute and cutting off their fingers. Well, yes, that, but also it's a dead man switch. So if you have a self-propelled lawnmower, for instance, and it's starting to get away from you, you can just let go of it. But yeah, I mean, I've got no problem with some things like that. My riding tractor, my tractor mower, my lawn tractor, has a thing on it where if I stand up and take too much weight off my seat, it kills the engine. So I can't get off my mower and go pick something up. Now, I realize they're going to go, yeah, but you can't get off your mower and stick your foot underneath the deck either, right? I suppose. But I also know that a lot of people hotwire that to where they can get up and pick something up and get back on the mower. They have to shut it off and restart it. So some of that stuff, I understand why it's there. But Chris Cadman says there are 3 chords. Yeah, that's pretty much the dividing line. Fewer than 3, and you're talking like really basic punk. And more than 3, you're talking Rick Beato range. Oh, Dan Boyd says I only go to Marathon to buy beer and chew. Yeah, Marathon best in the long run. The band IQ from the UK did an album, Dark Matter. Try it. I've not heard of them. I'll have to check that out. And one of the craziest things to understand is I'll be poking around on the internet and I'll discover a song by somebody that came out 10 years ago and I love it. I'm going, how have I never heard of this before? How'd that happen? And it's because I don't listen to terrestrial radio anymore. And I don't even know if they play new music ever on terrestrial radio. And I've got a Sirius receiver in my truck, but a lot of the channels I listen to are playing stuff I'm already familiar with. I so rarely encounter new music that I like. And Future Islands just put out a new album. I'm like, hey, it's pretty good. The War on Drugs put out an album. That's a band not so long ago. That's pretty good too, but not often. Avenging M Appeal. Have you ever heard of Greta Van Fleet? He asks the guy from Michigan. Yes. Oh, I listened after I saw one of their t-shirts. Oh, yeah. Greta Van Fleet is from Frankenmuth, believe it or not, which is a small town just east of Saginaw a little ways. And I have actually been to a Saginaw Spirit hockey game where every time they score a goal, they play a clip from Black Smoke Rising by Greta Van Fleet, who've also appeared on Saturday Night Live, for instance. And they're very, very good. Very, very interesting. Some people will spot the parallels between them and Led Zeppelin in how they dress and some of the themes of their music, but they're good. I really like them a lot. G. Keyman says the blades have to be turned off and the tractor parking brake set. Then you can get off. I'm not sure if that's true of my Cub Cadet that I bought last year. It might be. But I know that if I shut the blades off, I'll have to look into that. Top Load Telly says that almost is as irritating as auto cutoff at idle on cars. I am very, very curious if somebody's done the math on that, because I know that the auto shut off and then restart the car when you're idling will save some gas, right? It's got to tear up your starter though, doesn't it? I mean, I don't get me wrong, burning gas probably creates more pollution than building another starter, but never liked that idea. Emmanuel Garris says, why are there no books in audio form by you? My book, American Murder Houses, is available in audiobook, but it's narrated by somebody else. It's narrated by a guy with a better voice than me. I've never looked into doing that myself, but that's the only book of mine that's available as an audiobook. Pinky says, I love Greta Van Fleet. They're awesome. Chris Cabot says, I like my new Gretsch. I assume you're referring to a guitar. MHOH says, I got a Cub Cadet. I like Cub Cadet. It's just, what's funny is I was not that big of a Cub Cadet fanboy or anything, but somebody gave me one. And the guy said, I'm done with this tractor. You want it? I said, sure. And I used it, and the thing was indestructible. And then finally I destroyed it. I busted the deck. And I thought, you know something? For how much abuse this thing got and how old it is, because the guy before me used it a lot also, that I went and bought a brand new one, which I absolutely love. And I also bought a Cub Cadet snowblower, a walk-behind snowblower, and their stuff is just really, really good. So I like their stuff. So Matt at War says, Steve, I have the audio version of American Murder House, and your voice is better than that book is read so dry. Really? Well, you know how it is. People don't like their own voices. So Geary Rexworks says gasoline engines are very efficient these days. Engine cutoff is already obsolete. Wouldn't surprise me with all the electronic fuel injection stuff you can do. Power from EP. Have you ever been to Novi and seen the Novi Indy cars? I've been to Novi many times because it's a fairly large place near Detroit. I used to live out near there, but I've never been to see the Indy cars. There's some kind of museum there, and there was a company or entity called Novi that made Indy cars for a period of time. I think in 30s and 40s. It did very, very well, and it's one of the few things that Novi is known for outside of that area. So, Buffalo by Bicycles is hard not to be cliche, but new music is trash. A lot of it is, but once in a while I'm surprised by something. Benny Goat says it's not a cost-saving measure; it's to meet emission standards. It wouldn't surprise me, but I'm simply saying, and don't get me wrong, I'm simply curious. If anybody's done a cost-benefit analysis, not about the emissions, but what the cost is of having that starter cycle that many times compared to how many times you cycle a starter otherwise. So, you know, I can tell you right now, I've personally had a Ford Explorer go 236,000 miles on the original starter. Okay, so that's a starter that'll last forever. I have a feeling the starter they've got in some of these smaller cars that are auto on and off aren't that robust, but we'll see. Johnny Knoxville, don't you wish you could grow Bermuda grass in Michigan? You know, I go to an industrial grass seed place, and I just buy these big bags of grass seed. I don't even know. It's a mix. I don't even know what it is. MHOH says the Cub Cadet starts first pull every spring. Well, in this case, it wasn't pull because I didn't have to yank anything, but it was a push button. Now I did put a trickle charger on the battery, so the battery was good and hot, but you know how it goes, figuratively speaking. Chris Cadman says a walk behind snowblower is safer than a walk in front snowblower. Yes. I want to differentiate the fact that this is not a snowblower mounted on the front of something. Like I could have gotten a snowblower and mounted it on the front of my tractor. I could have. I didn't. My brother's got one. He loves it. Anytime it snows, just the littlest bit, he goes out because he likes to use it. So, Dave Beeler, doesn't Ford have an engine that has an internal oil pump powered by an internal rubber belt? I'm not sure about the rubber belt, but I do know there's an internal oil pump, which is the last place you want to put an oil pump. I'm sorry, water pump. The water pump. I don't know about the oil pump part, but that could be too. I know the internal water pump was a major problem because you don't know it's gone bad till it's gone bad, and the replacement cost is a fortune. So Mark Miller says, if you like Nightwish, I think you'd like Distant Dream. I'll check them out. JR, are you currently writing another book? Yes and no. I'm in the early stages of research on one. So Johnny Knoxville and Milwaukee Admirals are at the Grand Rapids Griffins today, final game of the hockey season. What league is that? Because I don't think the Griffins play in the same league as the Flint Firebirds or the Saginaw Spirit, which I think is OHL. But there's so many of those smaller leagues out there. Yeah, Dan Boyd's oil pumps are internal, except on race applications. Internal water pumps suck. And that's what I was getting at. I misread it the first time. I thought he was talking about water pumps. Shoy says, I saw you talk about the turbine car in a documentary. Yeah, you probably did. The documentary is on YouTube. If you have not seen it, please go check it out. They put a lot of work into it. I am simply one of the people who was in it, along with my brother and Jay Leno. And they have footage of a turbine car driving around a track and talk to people who had the turbine cars. It is so cool. It's a wonderful documentary. Look up Haggerty turbine car on YouTube. You'll find it. And it's absolutely amazing. I was blown away when I first saw it. I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys put so much work into this just to put it up on YouTube because it's Haggerty. They're like, what else are we going to do with it? They took it to a film festival. So Kenneth Darkwater says, never hear you mention Black Sabbath. Not a fan. You know something? I'm not a huge fan. I actually like Ozzy, though. I do like Ozzy. Ozzy's got some great solo stuff. See you on the other side. And I've always admired Ozzy. And the funny thing about Ozzy, he's a genius, absolute genius, because he knew that by just doing goofy things, he'd get all kinds of attention, and then people would hear his music. And he's one of those guys who just capitalized on that to an amazing degree. Johnny Knoxville says it's the AHL as opposed to the OHL. So there you go. Mark Miller says Distant Dream is out of Gdansk. Gdansk. I'll check it out. Junkman, do you follow criminal law or just civil? Usually. I will follow the laws in the news. I don't care if it's criminal or civil. As an attorney, I do not practice much criminal law. Very, very rarely. Eric Land, this is bedtime for me. We're approaching 3 o'clock. Congrats on the Yodometer of 500K. Thank you very much. Case docs to come in the email. I'll look for them. Daniel Kester says he checked out the turbine car documentary and it was great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Harry Selden says, do you have a turbo encabulator for the Cobra? I assume if I put one on there, it would be too much. It would actually probably like make it go back in time or something. Oh boy. Kenneth Darkwater says, absolutely love Ozzy. Bon Gondor says, what was the car you had where the belts snapped every 4,000 miles? Good memory, my friend. It was a Daytona IROC RT. I forgot what year it was, but for 2 years, it was 2 years, they had a car that had a dual overhead cam. And the belt on that was like a mile long because it went up and around and all over the place. And there was a problem that they didn't discover till many years later. They finally figured it out. And the belt at certain speeds would get like almost like I forgot what they call the action of it, but it wouldn't be pulling straight. It would be like with a waveform in it. And that would cause it to then go over the upcoming timing gear wrong. And like clockwork, every 4,000 miles. And I bought mine used. Mine was used when I bought it. And I bought it used, timing belt. And when it broke the third timing belt, I called up my contact at Chrysler and said, hey, because I sue them all day long. I said, I've got a Chrysler problem right now. Todd East's 91 Daytona, that could have been it. That may have been it. Right around there, early 90s. And I called up my friend. I go, dude, I've got this 91 Daytona. It's eating timing belts. He goes, get me the VIN. I got it to him. He goes, I'll buy it back. I'm like, Okay. They knew it was a problem. So when I bought it used, the previous owner probably had it chewing up timing belts also. So resonant frequency, that could be the word that you're thinking of, but that's not what they called it. And it was an article on Allpar for you Mopar guys. And one of the engineers who worked on the program described the problem, and he described it. That's not the word he's talking about. And they probably could have fixed it with some kind of tensioner or something, but they just decided rather than going back and trying to reverse engineer something, they just said, screw it, just get rid of these cars. So Daniel Kester, what do you think of the Chevrolet Corvair? I've got mixed feelings. I've never seen one up close for more than a few minutes. I've never driven one, never ridden in one. Of course, it was rear wheel drive, so it handled differently, and it got a bad rep, but that's all I know about them. Scott M. had a 20-year-old secondhand Cub Cadet for 15 years. Does not surprise me. The one that I had that I finally killed was, I think, about 20 years old. It may have been cavitation, Ben Gray. That might be it. Wasn't oscillation either. But I mean, those are all the same concepts, but that's just simply not the term the guy used. So, front gas tank and a Corvair. Yeah, you got to move the stuff someplace. Dave Beeler had a 62 Corvair, ran great. Emmanuel Garrett, have you ever had any offers to go on radio? Not really. I worked in radio a long time ago. The problem is that the radio markets out there, believe it or not, there's not a radio station in America that would be able to get me the audience I have on YouTube. I don't think so. And the reason I say that is just that radio without syndication. And so the numbers I get on YouTube, if I were to go to radio, I'd be speaking to a smaller audience. So I can't imagine doing that. Oh, boy. Yeah, Roadie's 824, Chevy's other vet, the Chevette. JJ CEO 40, timing belts are a bad idea. I'll tell you right now, I'm a big fan of timing chains or timing gears if you can eliminate them altogether. But the idea of a rubber timing belt that's routine maintenance was never a big fan. But I know some people get all bent out of shape, so I won't go there. What up, so Steve? What about satellite radio like XM or Sirius? I don't listen to much talk on those stations. I'm not really sure. I mean, obviously they approached me, I'd consider it. But Shoy, have you thought about streaming on Twitch? I don't even know what Twitch is. I've heard of it, and that's about it. So, Brianna CC, is lemon law taught in schools as its own course? No, it is not. It is taught as part of consumer protection, which I used to teach at the University of Detroit. I'm going to mention one more time that my book, American Murder Houses, I still have a few left. If you want one from me, email me at steve@lehtowslaw.com and put the word book in the subject line and put your full name in there also, and I'll invoice you via Square. It's secure. You pay the Square invoice. I'll get your address. I'll mail you the book. I'll sign it, send it, but it's got to be in the U.S. It's got to be in America. Somewhere down the road, I might try to get some out to foreign countries, but it's so cost prohibitive. But I'm going to do that right now. Junkman, want a synopsis on the book? It is a list of houses around the country, about 25 or 26, that are notorious because murders took place there. So like the Lizzie Borden house or the Nicole Brown Simpson condominium, those kind of things. And I've got one chapter on each house. I describe the murder that took place there, the history of the house, and what's there today, because I only did this on houses that are still standing. So my publisher took this version of the book out of print. It's the complete book with photographs, and I've shipped out 300 or 400 in the last week, and I still got more. So like I said, you want one, email me. But that's going to wrap it up. We've been doing this now for 2 hours. Still has 700 people in the room. Pretty cool. And we'll try to do it again next week. So until then, behave yourself. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.